vulnerability is such a superpower. A lot of people trap it inside them. They don't figure out how to use it as a tool.
I really wanted to understand who I was as a person. And the more that I understood myself, the more authenticity I got, and the more that I became real, because I wore a mask for my entire life. Self-mastery, to me, is the key to everything.
So what do you find is one of the most familiar stuck points? Like you yourself said, I didn't always have this relationship to convicted abundance, or however we might frame it.
A lot of people have a hard time being vulnerable enough to let someone come in and support their business. So they micromanage, they have to control everything. You are not supposed to be doing all the things in your business. When you go through trauma, you don't have control over your life. And so when you are working through it, you're going to seek control from certain places. And if that's a place that I can control and it makes me feel better, then why wouldn't I do it? There's 3 core wounds that we have: unworthiness, betrayal, and abandonment. So if you have not healed through these 3 core wounds or learned how to manage them with your emotions, it'll show up in your business in many ways.
Hey, welcome to Man on a Mission. We're here with a very special guest, Shamina Taylor. I'm really excited to do this. We have a lot of mutual friends. I'm most excited because I know that Shamina has an amazing track record of taking her client's money situation and 4Xing it, 5Xing it, 10Xing it. We love to talk money everywhere we go because it is the key to find the freedom we're really looking for, right? We're always talking about finances, but what we're really after is freedom, but money really is the link to making that freedom come true. Shamina is a wealth expert, a business mentor and coach. She's an attorney and a mama, and she runs her own podcast called the Quantum Woman Podcast. So I'm really excited to hear all about this, Shamina.
Published author.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, Unlocking the Quantum Woman.
Oh, cool.
So
I like
I'm pumped. Obviously, this is going to serve men and women, but in particular, you've really dialed in to help people totally shift, women in particular, their wealth consciousness. So I think naturally, let's start here. Like, before we get into what is wealth consciousness to you, the work you do with women, your coaching, your mastermind, all those things. On Man on a Mission, we interview men and women, and we immediately like to start with, I love this saying that you can only go as high as you've been low. And oftentimes it's the low or the hardship, the loss, a calamity that opens up, an expansion in consciousness or a new potential in someone. Tell us about yourself. We'd love to hear about your own background, your own personal story, and
Wow.
and how you arrived to where you are.
Okay, I'm going to give you the abbreviated version. First of all,
Sure.
Thank you so much for having me on this show. It's such a privilege to be here, and I really am grateful for our mutual friends that have connected us, and it's a pleasure and it's a privilege. So you're right. To get to a new level of consciousness, there has to be some awareness or something going on in your life right now that's going to shift or move that energy so the consciousness could come through. So about 10 years ago, I used to be a bodybuilder. Like I used to do figure competitions, and I was in working out all the time. And a girlfriend of mine had joined me on the mission, and she was getting filmed on TV for her success in it. So I was like, being on TV? I'm like, sign me up. I wanted to be on TV. So I wore the cutest Lululemon. We were going to a yoga studio where she was going to get some B-roll for the event. And at this yoga studio, I had done yoga 3 times. And when you lift weights, yoga is like the worst thing ever. It's the hardest thing to do. Like my lats were all shaking. It's like really, really hard. And anybody who's, lifts weights understand what I'm talking about. So I was in there, I was on the mat, and I had my phone beside me, which you're not supposed to do in yoga, but I did. And she's like talking about, like what they do in those yoga classes, like how happy you are. And yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I don't know really how happy I really am. I feel a bit lost right now, but she's telling us to put one leg one way, put one leg the other way, and I'm always up for a challenge. So that's what I do. And I'm putting one leg one way, which you're not very flexible when you lift weights, by the way, but I'm prepared to do anything because that's how I am. And I got this little square box, those little cork boxes to hold on to. And I was holding on to this box for dear life. And she was saying, are you happy? And in that moment, I was like, what does that even mean? I had a successful practice. I was married. I had 2 beautiful kids. We had, our $1 million home. We were traveling to Europe in the summertime. We were going to the Caribbean in the winter. I had all these material gifts. But in that moment, I couldn't even define what happiness was. And at the same time, she's telling me to get into a pretzel position. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Well, at that moment, this overwhelming like pain came over through my hips and I started crying, and I had never felt this physical pain before. Well, that physical pain turned into emotional pain, and before I knew it, I was literally having the biggest, ugliest cry of my life on this yoga mat, and I had no idea what was happening to me, but I just couldn't stop it. And it was like this release finally was happening, and I was in that moment, I was like, I don't know who Shamina is. I don't know what happiness is. I felt so lost, but for the first time I was having some kind of clarity, and it was like a spiritual awakening was happening on this mat in this moment. And I stayed in this position, which was the frog position. And if you've done yoga, that is a very advanced move. People kept coming up to me, rubbing my back, but I knew something in that moment had to change in my life. It could not unsee what I saw. And my marriage was not in the best place, to be quite honest with you, because what I have learned, and he's not a bad guy, I wish him all the best, but I had brought a lot of trauma into my relationship and my marriage, and so did he. I'd come home and I didn't talk to him about what had happened for a couple of days later. And then when we had a discussion, he wasn't happy either. And a month later, we decided it was good for him to move out, and he never moved back home. And then all of a sudden, my awakening started happening. I started seeing, and being a lawyer, like when that stuff starts happening, I had like 30,000 screenshots of things, or like things in, like were happening. I'm like, this is crazy what was happening to me. I went into something I called monk mode, and I realized that the marriage breakdown had something more to do with the marriage than it had to do with me. So before I was going to go out and date other people, I had to work on myself. And when I was 16 years old, I had a very pivotal thing happen to me. My father was cheating on my mom, and I had found out he'd started hitting me probably when I was like 13, and it was just his way of doing things. And once boys started coming into the picture, he started being really abusive towards me. And at 16, I forgot the date. I was 15, but my brother told me the truth. Like, you know, he goes, it was actually Halloween when you were 16. And I told my dad, you're cheating on mama, you better tell her. And anyway, that night, my father took matters into his hands, and he literally was beating the crap out of me. He was, you know, my face was being like slammed into this like pink carpet. I will never forget the smell of those fibers. Both of my eyes were black and blue. My nose was broken. Everything was bleeding all over. Every part of my face was branded. I had like these little dots on my face where all the blood vessels were broken. I looked like I would been in this most serious crash ever. There was a moment when I guess I was able to reach over to this phone, one of those old rocker phones, and I grabbed it and I hit him over the face and I cut his face open. And that was a moment where he had to stop, and I got up and I ran out of the house. And I don't really remember much after that, but it was like one of those moments in my life that my safety, I have a 16-year-old right now, and I couldn't even imagine putting my hands on her other than to love her. But for decades, I went with that trauma inside of me unhealed. And he never hit me after that, but he was still really abusive. And when your safety gets taken away at a very young age as a woman, the masculine gets removed from you and you don't know what it is. I went into complete survival mode. And what I realized is that when I had that yoga mat moment, decades of me just compounding that moment was coming out, because I became an ice queen. I'd never felt my emotions. I closed off emotionally. My heart wasn't open. And that's why I was bodybuilding, because I was fixing the outside instead of the inside, because that's all I knew. So I spent the last 10 years working on myself. And in the process, I was able to move through a lot of the trauma, and then the consciousness came through. And I realized there was something else for me to do with my life. And then the money consciousness came through, because I can apply it to that. And then everything changed, and my life has literally expanded into this most beautiful experience from what I had gone through. And now I help other women go through the same thing. You know, money's never about money. It's always about something else.
That's so beautiful.
Powerful.
Like, you are such a gift. You're a gift. Like, oh my, I can right away when you started speaking, I was like, oh, this is a woman that has a lot of power. This is a woman that is going to help, and it's probably already helped. This is the story I want to get, but at the very least has so much potential to impact and help so many other women in the world, and men too. Like, you just have a powerful presence, and I could feel it, like deep beneath the surface. Without knowing your story, I knew there was something valuable there. I could feel it. Just it radiates off you. I don't think that's things that you can manipulate. Like certain people just have that thing. And one of the things we preach, literally, I mean, this is something that I'm so big on, is some of the most impactful people in the world that I know. And as I really look at some of the instincts in my own life, where my real value comes from, it's from the pain and the trauma of my past. And that's what I realized, that the greatest people have fully learned how to leverage. And it's amazing to get that backstory and then see how they're applying it. Because there's a lot of people out there with pain. And if you can get them to transfer that pain and stop harming themselves and harming others, and to get them to refocus it into their dreams, it's like rocket fuel. Into impact, it's rocket fuel. So I just wanted to bless you with a big thank you and let you know that, like, oh my, I have a lot of love for you, Shamina. You're a gift, and I'm so glad I got to connect with you today. It's been an honor already. We're just getting started.
Yeah. Jacks for
Thank you.
openers.
That means a
man.
lot to me. You know, they say energy doesn't lie. So
Yeah,
agree.
I always say, I feel like I've heard it said you'd have to have like 100 dinner conversations to hear all the particulars, but in seconds we kind of pick up in someone's aura,
Yeah.
their way of being, like the nature of their heart. And
Yeah, vulnerability is such a superpower. A lot of people trap it inside them. They don't figure out how to use it as a tool. And the people that do are the people that really change the world. And so I love this storyline. Even though I know that you had to go through hell to be able to get to where you're at now, you have this incredible gift now because of what you've been through, and for you to fully exploit it with impact being this dominating thought. It'll be really cool to see how far you take this and what you do. And now you have a huge fan right here on this journey, because it's people like you, I think, that like keep this world together. You are the literal glue to this world. You know what I mean? That's cool. Very cool. Very inspiring.
I'd love to ask, before we get to, you alluded to how everything's interrelated, like, money's not about money, and the inner qualities of consciousness, which I'm eager to hear you expand on and how you coach on that. But tell us a little bit about, like, so when that pain came up, how did you, what helped you work through that? And then in particular, what was the segue from there to the nature of your work today? Attorney in pain.
wow.
To where you are today.
So I didn't know where to start. You know, when you have a traumatic event happen, and then divorce was very traumatic for me. It was like,
that's a high on the Richter scale of everything.
oh yeah. And I remember going to a therapist and said to her, I go, I just want to deal with the divorce. Like, don't want to deal with the dad stuff. Can we just deal with that? And I remember I had to call in a healer too, because a healer came in, and I remember going to the healer and I go, it's July, we're going into August, like exactly when all this, like, can you give me a date when the healing's done? So I could know, because being an overachiever, I wanted to be able to set goals of how I can achieve this healing.
Control it all.
That was 10 years ago, and here we are, and I still do this work every day.
Yeah.
So I did every single healing modality you could imagine, because not only was it was so rooted in my cells, but it was in every part of my beingness of what was experienced in me, because it also fueled my success in so many ways, because I felt never good enough. So when you don't feel good enough, this is like the high achievers thing. It's like their secret that they probably don't tell people, but I know them, is that that's the reason why nothing ever feels like you're there yet. So you're always feeling that I need more. So you don't have that satiated feeling. Mm-hmm. So I have 3 degrees. It made me going. And it's what does, I never stopped, because I never felt good enough. But for me, I drank ayahuasca. I did everything. You name it. I've been and done the things. But what I realized was I was really stubborn. My patterns ran so deep within inside of me that I created my own kind of modality in this sense. I realized that when I learned to master my emotions, I became the most powerful person in the room. So I used to get triggered by everything. And anger is always the forefront emotion, right? And there's always something underneath, but there's always a story. When I learned that my triggers were like literally the gateway for my healing, I started to realize that it was never the other person or the event. It was the power's always in me. Like, how Taylor Swift says, if you're the problem, you're solution. So I always saw that, okay, here's an opportunity for me to go in and find out why I feel this way. So I literally have been someone who's like learned herself. And because I've done that, I've understood my clients so well, because they're literally like me. and they all have the same patternings. It's all the same thing. We're created the same way. And one of the things that I found that was really powerful for me is to journal and to really just, you cannot run from yourself. When you can sit and be with yourself and meditation. Dr. Joe came into my world like really, really early. Like I went to him when he had like 50 people in the room, like, and, like him and his team would text me, and it was back in the day, and now he has like thousands of people. But I first started with him because he started giving me an understanding of what the quantum field was. Because being an attorney, I needed the science to really support. When I started shifting a thought and a belief in healing, all of a sudden I was creating something with it. I was like, it was like such a reward-based thing. So I'm like, the more that I healed this, the more that I could create that. Like, oh, if I move this thought away, this would come in. And so I was like eager. And so I was always had that incentive. I also I became celibate. I cut people out of my life. Men and women and everything. I did that probably twice. I was, for 3 years, I was celibate. I realized that, exchange of energy was really, really important for me to stay in my own place. Like, why did my marriage fail? I really wanted to understand who I was as a person. And the more that I understood myself, the more authenticity I got, and the more that I became real, because I wore a mask for my entire life. I was somebody who not truthfully. So the more that I did the work, the more I understood myself. So that was really big. And so self-mastery to me is the key to everything, because mastery is your emotions. Your emotions are your subconscious. Your subconscious is always going to be creating, and your emotions are your feminine. Your feminine is the quantum field, is your spiritual self. So the more connected you are to that, the more your consciousness expands.
That's really good. I can definitely feel a free person in you, like a legitimate free person. I think most people are slaves. They're slaves to something. And one of the things I connect the dots to all the time, I feel like you're like my female version of me right now. The way you're speaking, like you talk about, I always talk about the most precious thing you own is your emotions, your ability to control your emotions. And it's funny, like at some point I started systematizing something that would help me correct my emotions in the moment. And I feel just compelled to share it with you really quickly. It's really quick too. I won't take too much time here, but it connects so deeply to what you're saying. And I teach this, and so many people I teach it say that now they've heard it, they can't unhear it. So I know that I'm getting a lot of validation from the right sources, which is really cool too, but it worked for me. I would always be overwhelmed with emotions as I would pursue excellence and greatness. I was always trying to achieve the world. I had a big chip on my shoulder, tons of chips. I was passion-led at my whole life, let's be honest. But when those emotional moments would happen, I would describe them as like a physical feeling, a blood pressure feeling in my throat. And it wouldn't really matter the situation, that would overtake me. And from there, I don't know where I would go. It would never be anywhere that would really be serving me. But the one point you made that I thought was so good, and it's the point that I started connecting when I started systematizing responses to feelings that I didn't like inside me that made me look like an asshole, or where I would embarrass myself, or whatever the case, is this whole concept of like, you have the power. Like, you're always in control. It's an illusion that you're not in control. And I use this example a lot because it's so dumb. But if someone was going to be on a freeway speeding up the road against me, and they roll down their window and they throw an egg at my car, and then they flip me off and say, fuck you, and then they cut me off and almost run me over the road, the emotions in an alpha male, like who's always in control, like I'll want to rip that person out of the car. Like, it's a real feeling, right? But even in that moment, my ability to connect that feeling, I know I don't like that feeling. No one likes that blood pressure feeling of pressure or stress that's turning into a very bad emotion. My ability to stop myself and just take one really deep breath, just one deep breath, and then I think about a chessboard. The second I think about a chessboard, Shamina, what I realize is the universe just made a good chess move against me. Just like gravity, it's trying to suck me down the swamps and get me to make a bad move. My connection to that stupid chessboard, I gamify any bad situation, I can gamify it in a second. It's my move now. The fact that I now know it's my move and I took a deep breath, I don't need to blame that guy. I don't need to it's not his fault. I can actually do this. Good job, universe. Well played. That was a wonderful one. This sounds tacky sometimes or a little cliche. It's not. Like, I have the power. I always have the power. And there's something really, really like beautiful in some of the approaches that you can bring to how you control your emotions, even dumb stuff. A chess table for me instantly changes, because now that it's my move, I'm going to think about it for a minute. I'm going to ponder it. And I'm going to say, okay, boom. take that, bitch. Like the move becomes something strategic where I preserve my emotions. And again, I just wanted to share with you because very few people that I've ever interviewed will sort of tap into that emotions piece the way you did, like right out of the gates. You just tapped right into it. And you're right. This has saved my life. Not only has it saved my life, but it's made me one of the most powerful people that I know. Like, and now I'm getting around people that are really powerful myself. I'm around them. There's demand for me. And I think I'm crediting my movement with my ability to control my emotions when there's pressure and there's stress, because that keeps me in the fire longer. I'm in the game longer, and I'm making people feel better, because it's always about how I'm leaving people when I leave them. If I'm an asshole or pressured and stressed and I'm not in my best mindset, like I'm never leaving that good thing in the room when I leave. But now I feel like I always am. And it's a really rewarding to hear my female version of me. I'm going to say all these beautiful things. So anyway, I'm sorry for overwhelming that.
No, I think it's great. You know, I do feel though, I love the chest move thing, and I think I'm going to adopt that. It's amazing. I do feel though, your emotions are valid. Like, even if they don't make sense, I always say, even if you're having an emotional response, you get to be upset, whatever it is. And so I remember when I was going through my divorce, there was like this, I remember my kids were acting up in the back, and I was like, all right, I pulled over on this like 2-lane road, and there was this big oak tree. I'm like, everybody out. And I'm like, we got out. I'm like, all right, you guys want to scream? I'm like, you scream at this tree right now. You get all your emotions out, because I don't want your emotions stuck in them. So the three of us just screamed and cried to this tree, and this tree had held us, grounded us. And then within minutes, my kids are like, I'm better now. And I remember 2 weeks later, my son goes, I need the tree. I'm like, I got you, baby. I pulled over, took him out, and he screamed. And my kids know to, like, your emotions matter. It's just how you respond to the people with your emotions, right, is the key, because it's your reactive or your responsive, right?
Do you project them or act them out on others? But that basic idea, when you let go of resisting a painful feeling and let it be there, you actually disappear it. That distinction. And
but it's still a system and a process. She's created a system and a process for dealing with an emotion that may take people off the deep end, and she's been able to systematize something that works for her, that allows her to maintain her sanity and her control, but still feel the thing that's probably there for a reason.
What I tell my clients to do is, like, get mad, but don't get mad at the person. So if you like are so angry, like, pick up your phone and like get in your notes and you just write that text that you want to write. My brother, like, every time I would text him, he's like, did you send that to the person yet? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, phew. And when I start seeing, like, after I sent it, I'd calm down. I'm like, oh, I processed my emotions all the way through, because in the past, when I was Ice Queen, I would just be like, that doesn't bother me.
They'd be suppressed. You deny them, you repress them. That basic. I had a mentor. He was like, "You're not angry enough." Like, you're like, if you're pissed off, well, that's just, you're not really angry enough, and then it uncorks something. So
I love the chest move, though. I'm really gonna instill that, because even though when you still get triggered, you still have to have that slip moment where you're like, what do I want to move? I love it.
What it did is it took the person or the thing out of it, and it allowed me to put it frame it in a way that would allow my response to change. And it was always a response that truly served what was best for me. It was that simple, really. And I don't know how I came up with that. I've been using it for years, but when I started teaching it, one of the things that gives me a lot of validation and a lot of confidence and certainty as I teach this to anyone really now is so many amazing people that I've taught this to will come back to me even years later, and they always bring up the game. They call it the game. They bring up the game. And I have a lot of rules and triggers. Even this wristband, it actually serves part of the game. It's a fuck yous, excuses wristband. But it really it's always about emotional control. Being able to be calm in the storm is one of these things that I admire in great leaders, because leadership and winning doesn't mean you don't have less pressure and less challenges. It doesn't mean you have less environments that are toxic that you got to deal with. In many cases, it means you have more. So your ability to remain calm and lead in the storm is crucial. And if you're a fiery person like me, I got a lot of juice. I need a trick. I just need tricks.
I'm spicy. I'm from South America. I'm spicy. We're like, we're spicy.
That's why I like you. That's exactly why I like you.
It's like the weather.
I'm like, don't mess with me. You're gonna see Street Shamina, because she's still in me. Like,
that's awesome.
That's why I could tell. That's why I like.
Like, I have a G-Wagon, and I'm telling you, these Tesla guys are always trying to race me on the road. I'm like, really? Really? You want to do this right now? Everybody's trying to race me on the road. I'm like, all right, guys. Anyways, go on.
Let go of resisting what you are, man. That's
awesome. Cool, though, to see so many people win with something you give them. It's really rewarding. We talk about this a lot. It's one thing to hear it. It's one thing to see it. It's one thing to read it. It's one thing to do it. And it's a whole nother thing to teach it. And the second, for me, I started teaching it. It really forced me to get clear on what things that were kind of working for me. And that's where I found I became most dangerous. I'm very dangerous now because I can teach the things I do. And a lot of people just do them. They may be good, but they're not impacting the world. They're not stepping into the light. They're not revealing their testimony. Well, you have. And I love this part in the story on this podcast. We get so many people that are in the light. They're doing big, scary things. They're slaying unique dragons with impact as one of the dominating themes. And it's clear that you're doing that now. I love to try to get the backstory between where you were when you were hiding behind the scenes to where you are now, stepping into the light and slaying those unique dragons in front of the whole world to see, which is, to me, it's where all the real magic is. I think it's so fulfilling to do this type of work because it's so scary. At least it is for me. It is so scary to step up in front of people.
You know, I think what you're saying here is, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's the embodiment of the teachings. And I feel like we have to be the walking, talking billboard of our teachings. Like,
yes.
I feel like if you haven't experienced it yet, you shouldn't teach it yet until I become fully integrated into my soul. And when you look at me and I represent the thing that I'm talking about, then I'm already authenticating myself right away. Like, this is who I am. Because there is a lot of BS out there, right?
Yeah.
But when someone's walking and talking and they're breathing, they're like, oh, I can already feel that frequency from them. And that's probably what you were already establishing
100%.
with people. And I think that's why, people come and work with me because they're like, she's like the real deal, And I was fake for so long. So why would I choose not to be, But it takes a long time to get here. So back to your question, getting out into the world, I started, I feel like I always, there's a Wayne Dyer quote, like, I think it says something like, don't let the music die in you or something like that, right?
Right.
Don't live your life with your song unsung.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And I always tell people I have the medicine. So if you want it, come to me, right? But I also, with that, in that state, it makes me get up every day. Like, I always think tomorrow's my last day, because we don't know when our last day comes. Am I going to sit there and let my little self, my little girl, or my insecurities stop me from showing up? Or am I going to show up and help people? Because I was looking for me back then and I couldn't find her. So I make it my duty every day. If I go to bed tonight, when I go say my gratitude and did I show up fully? And I always feel like I still got more in the tank. So go bigger, go bigger, go bigger. And I think that's what fuels me every day, because
so good.
And I don't waste time. I'm like, if there's something to be done, let's do it. Like, move.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Matt, how she brought death into this? And then the very next word she brought up was gratefulness. And we try to make these points a lot. I study a lot of really successful people, and it's blown me away how much they ponder death. And they bring death into their decisions, and it helps them clear the shit that doesn't matter off the table, and it only puts things that move the needle on the table. And for me, personally, I always think about death. I really, almost in a unhealthy way, until I fully learned how to leverage it. And now I use it as a gift because it makes me love people. I hug differently. I am where my feet are. And I do feel like I've slowed time down a little bit because I'm not always in the future so much. Thinking about death makes me go bleed right here in this moment. And somehow, by not being always so in the future, which is instinctual in a guy, especially success in general, you're always in the future. But it really makes me...
What's next mentality? What's next? What's next? What's next?
100%. Death changes that a little, just enough for me to get a little more... I squeeze a little more juice out of every moment, and that in alone is worth its weight in gold. But I keep coming across this in people that are high achievers, is that death is a parameter with how they make decisions on a daily basis. And it always comes back to gratefulness. Like, she just said it. I didn't say it. And it's funny because, like, we have this big mastermind group that we teach in Coeur d'Alene every single Thursday. Me and Matt host a big group. And this is such a dominating thought for us. Some of these connectors, like leveraging your pain, that's a common denominator. Death, very common denominator. Mission, people that have missions. Like, it's such a well-rounded thing to kind of cage that I keep finding in the best people that achieve the most and have these big foundations. But you're already 2 for 2 in your first 2 big points. Pain, death. I already know it's missions coming up next. Like, what is your mission? The name of our show is Man on a Mission. I know we're going to get there. Don't feel rushed to jump there because I'm really enjoying this interview with you. But this is really good, Shamina.
I'm That's good. I'm so glad we got connected. I mean, I always feel like, so this is another thing. I always feel like the more that you put yourself out there, the more the universe is going to move for you. The opportunities will show up. It's like, so if you don't put yourself out there and you have a big impact and you have a big mission and you have this vision, no one's coming to knock at your door. So
That's
you've
exactly
got to
right.
show up. And like, it's like people are looking for overnight success, but I mean, yes, you can quantum leap, but at the same time, the more that you show up and the more that you test the waters of your
Yeah.
messaging or put yourself out there, the clearer you're going to get, the clarity is going to come in.
So
I
good.
study myself so I can study the people that I serve because I want them. Like I'm always results driven. Like my clients' results and what they do is like paramount to everything I do. So I feel like if you want to have a successful impact, then you have to lead in order to lead others. You have to lead yourself. So I lead myself every day. Like, what kind of leader am I? And that's so important for me, at least.
Yeah.
Powerful.
It's crazy. I feel like you're speaking exactly how I speak too. I study myself too because I'm doing these real-time actions that are so raw and unique to me, and I instantly have a platform to teach it from. Like as I'm doing it and absorbing it, and it's this, I instantly give it away if it's working for me. Anything that's actually working for me,
100%.
I give it away. I turn it into curriculum. But because I'm doing this chapter of my life's not about business, is like in the traditional sense. All those years of building businesses and being behind the scenes is different than this. This is me getting on stages, which was my scariest dragon. So I can talk about, well, what's your scariest dragon? I'm living in mine right now. And guess what? The whole world's pawing at me. I'm getting asked to speak. Shamina, I've spoke on a stage, some sort of stage, every single week since May. And before May, I'd only ever spoke on a stage one time.
Bravo, man. That's awesome. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Celebrating you. That's huge. That's amazing.
Appreciate you. We literally built the stage, and I knew I had to burn some huge bridges when I made this commitment, and I went all in. And now the scar tissue's there. I can teach it now, and it's so rewarding. It's one of the most fulfilling things a human can do, is to literally go build their own stage, whatever the dragon is, the arena for you, whatever your arena is. Go fucking build it, or go get attached to it. Do something, but
I did the
be
same
in the
thing
fight.
too.
Isn't it cool? I know you do. I can tell.
We literally in September, we knew the book was coming out too. And I was like, I said to my team, I said, hey, let's do an in-person event. And they said, okay, it was end of September, 6 weeks. We literally my team found a venue. I said, booked it. When I walked in, the lady said to me, she goes, I just followed you on Instagram. I'm like, okay, universe, click. And then anyway, we just had this past weekend. There was 80 people in the room. It wasn't a big event, but 70 of them got on the plane to come see me in Chicago. Thank you. And they're like, you had no scripts, you had nothing. And the whole room had a consciousness and shift in wealth. And it was like one of those things where it's like, go do it, take action. 6 weeks it took me, and we filled the room. We sold out our event. And I loved speaking on stage. It was like, more, please. Like, let's do this, So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What dive into your work, like so you're on this stage and you're talking about wealth consciousness experience. Like I'd love to hear you speak to like these lever points.
Okay. So I'm assuming your audience knows what consciousness is. Let's just get a little history on it. So your consciousness, all our beingness, everything has a consciousness to it, right? We understand that. So as you shift through, like we talked about earlier in this podcast, the more that you shift a belief or an old emotion, I believe that when things get transmuted, because energy can never be created or destroyed, you are then transmuting a certain level of consciousness out of you. So when you have an awareness about something, like you can go your whole life and all of a sudden you'll have this click and you go, wow, only now I'm getting this, because your consciousness has shifted around something, right? So now you've expanded to a new level of thinking. So what I found was with wealth consciousness is your understanding about money and wealth. So most people have a very constricted wealth consciousness. And if you guys know, like Hawkins' scale, right, where he does the vibrational frequency, here's, envy, greed,
power
whatnot,
versus force,
goes up to enlightenment. So I believe that if we take that and we apply it to money, many people are hovering in the scarcity mindset when it comes to wealth because their victimness is still there. Most people who blame other people, or they're like, money's not here, I can hear what they're doing. Their consciousness levels here. So the more that you can neutralize your relationship with money, where you have power over money, and then you can understand that money is just a frequency and an energetics, You yourself have to get into that frequency. You now access more consciousness around wealth. So now you're like expanding how much money is available to you. So you might be doing, ABC in your business, but the moment that you expand your consciousness, you increase your pricing, you have different clients, you are working less and making more, you're running your business at a whole different operation, you're receiving support, you're not micromanaging people. There's different things because a lot of people's mindset shows up in their business, and I can see it right away just by how much they're making, how they're operating their business. So when you can expand and you can rewire your belief systems around money, which is never really about money, you then expand your consciousness around wealth, and then it becomes limitless. Like, I have a big long story about it, but I'm always supported by money. I believe money's masculine and the way that we receive it is feminine. I believe that because money's there for support, it's for security, it's for safety. We seek it because we know that we need it. We need it for shelter. And so the feminine is like the quantum field. It's the energetics. It's the knowing it's always going to be there, knowing that it's showing up for you, knowing that it's like it's there for you, right? So and everybody has masculine and feminine energy. It's not just we females that have feminine, but
Sure, anima.
when you've launched a program and then you lean back and relax and you know it's going to sell out, that's going back into your feminine, trusting that people are going to show up. But a lot of the times when people are in that wounded masculine state, they're like, where's the people? I need to do more. And so their consciousness is down here. But
They're
when you are in a
anxious
trust state, your consciousness is up here. Of course they're showing up. Of course it's working out. Of course the people are coming. So that to me is like the highest level you can be at. And I say it's unapologetic wealth is the highest level of consciousness you could be in, because I just want it because I want it. I don't have to work. I don't have to work hard for it, because I feel like that's one of the conditions that a lot of women have. I don't have to suffer for it. I have to trade my soul for it. I get to just be wealthy because I decided to. And then I know it probably goes against most people, like work hard to make money, but I don't feel like that's the way it should be. I think if you're doing it the right way, you can access more consciousness around it.
So does that mean that in order to reach that level of consciousness around finances, that likely you should be choosing a path? I call it a vehicle, anywhere where like earned income, where your time is being utilized to have income. So outside of the passive world, I'm just thinking just inside the vehicle of your earned income, should you be doing something you fully love?
Absolutely. You can't do anything else.
So yeah, her level that she's speaking, this is what I'm hearing. She's speaking to a level that everyone can get to if they truly find the thing they love, and then they center their world around that thing that they love. And again, it doesn't matter what it is. Again, it's funny. Like look where I'm at now. I finally found it. I'm almost 40 years old. Even though I'd done a lot of things that I loved, this is exactly what I was meant to do. And like all the opportunity that's around me, it's everywhere. It's overwhelming, and that's a good thing. Like I want overwhelming demand for my value that I offer the world, right? But to do it, if I didn't love this, it would be different. There's another Eric Rock that would love it better, and I'd be competing against that guy, and he's obsessed, and I'm not, because I really don't love what I'm doing. It's hard to win in life if you don't love what you're doing. It's so hard because there's 10,000 guys that want what you want. So you better love what you're doing, because I'll outlast you. I'll stay here because I like it.
This brings to my mind.
Because you can't chase the money. You can have a money goal, but you can never chase the money, because money. I
agree.
But if you have a goal,
it comes to you.
To do X, Y, Z with the money. I always say have an energetic place for money to go, because when you do, it just comes in through the avenue. But it's the conviction of what you do in life is why I feel like that's where the wealth is there. I know money supports me. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I will never have to worry about it. I didn't always. But
that's
I have
freedom.
Conviction. Yeah, it's freedom. And that's
freedom.
it. And that's what everybody who wants.
It comes to you. You don't ever go to it.
Never. Because women don't chase men. We don't chase the masculine. You're not supposed to chase after it. You just let them come to you.
Yeah, that's good.
And
I like that a lot. I love it.
And
that's desperate energy.
To be particular about the wording, it's not even like that you trust money. It's just you trust.
I do.
Like you
the
it's a
universe
weird
takes
thing.
care of
It's like it's outcomes totally renounce. You're just trusting. You're having faith that if you follow the thing you love, seeking to serve others.
It's like for her, it's even more than that. It's certainty. Like she passes off. She passes off to me that level of certainty that is so rare that I instantly trust her. And I get it. Like I do see how money flows to people that operate life with this sort of
They're not
certainty, passion.
They're not attached to it. They're not doing it in order to finesse the money.
No, they understand it. It's I get that.
It's
I
almost
love what money can do. Like I love flying first class.
Yeah,
I can go on Cartier, buy what I want. My kids have
conveniences,
everything.
preferences.
We're going to Miami in a couple of days for Thanksgiving because I don't know how to cook a turkey, and my kids don't ever want me to attempt a turkey.
Yeah.
You know, like.
So what do you find is one of the most familiar stuck points? Like you yourself said, I didn't always have this relationship to convicted abundance, or however we might frame it.
All right.
Like,
so I can tell if someone just tells me a little bit about their business, what is going on. I will tell you this. There's 3 core wounds that we have: unworthiness, betrayal, and abandonment. And so if you have not healed through these 3 core wounds or learn how to manage them with your emotions, it'll show up in your business in many ways. So, for example, support. A lot of people have a hard time being vulnerable enough to let someone come in and support their business. So they micromanage. They have to control everything. Yeah. You are not supposed to be doing all the things in your business, but having someone support you, wait, they could leave me. They could abandon me. I don't know if I want to trust someone so much. So I'll see that showing up. Then I'll see how much they're charging. If you don't have a high ticket, well, I don't know if they're going to pay that. Will they pay that? I don't know if people are going to pay that, that $25,000 or $30,000 to work with me, because, something else could come up. But I can start seeing like where they don't trust the process because of one of their core wounds. So one thing is, a lot of women that I work with, they're afraid of outperforming and outdoing, and this is a success thing, their family doing better. So what they do is they play small. So what is that? Because abandonment. I don't want to leave my family behind. So what happens is they stop the success from coming through. And so it's like, if you start looking at where in worthiness, oh my gosh, the charging, people don't charge pricing because they usually charge it on what they think other people will pay as opposed to what their program. I see people with the most gifted things, the most gifted, work, and yet they're giving it away basically. And I'm like, because their unworthiness comes up, like who's going to pay for this? Because they have not found that worth in themselves. So they cannot put it into their programs, into what they're doing, or really charge what they could be making. The only way to scale your business and to get into the millions and whatnot is you have to have, if you're going to sell like low ticket stuff, you're going to have to work really hard. But if you were able to bring yourself up into a higher level of program, you can sell less of them, and make more. And so that's one of the things I see a lot. And I'm talking doctors and people are very, very intelligent, and they have this issue.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's funny. I just got
worth, abandonment, and what was the third one?
Abandonment, betrayal, and worthiness.
Betrayal.
So if you've ever had someone cheat on you, forget about it, because that's then you're going to start attracting clients too that are going to default. You're going to start attracting the wrong avatar and prospect into your business.
If you didn't handle the betrayal properly in your consciousness.
Yes. You can see codependency going on in the business with your clients. You'll see people who are not respecting your boundaries. You're going to see it's all this like accumulation, and that's not the recipe for a successful business, to expand the consciousness around the wealth, Yeah,
it's amazing. This is a totally off the wall question, but we were just having this conversation earlier, and I promised Matt I would remember to ask it, and I didn't want to slip my brain because it just hit. But we were talking. Totally off topic. But I'm curious. I'm just curious to hear your perspective. So we're talking. Somehow Alex Hormozi got brought up, who I think is a very smart guy. He's a genius. He's got super sticky content. He really knows how to get the sheep to do this and then this. Yeah. Do you remember that famous video of the admiral that said, "Make your bed every day"?
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing a little thing here. Okay, we did a whole podcast somehow dedicated.
We just
to
picked
this.
It was
topic.
like a fun banter.
Anyway,
about that idea.
Point is this whole concept, and there's so many different ways to look at success and things that are important and things that are not important. And that video was one of the most viral motivational videos in the history of the world. So all the sheep agree, and I do. I totally get the sentiment. It was heartfelt. I understand it, and I agree. I mean, you'll never catch a day in my life where there's not every bed in my house made like pristine. Like I'm just orderly. Like you go into a poor neighborhood, you're going to see a lot of unmade beds. You go into a wealthy neighborhood, you're going to see very little unmade beds. It's just the way it works. But Alex Hormozy comes out and he makes this statement. He goes, "That's a bunch of bullshit." He goes, "Make your bed has nothing to fucking do with success or not. Like I don't make my bed." He's got his nose strip on, and
It's a brilliant marketing.
we did a whole
pivot.
hour on this, and we did. We went a lot of. We even took it to like the Selling Sunset, that show on Netflix, and we took this conversation to so many bizarre places. But it was one of these things. Well, let's ask Shamina. Shamina, what is the connection between making your bed and success? Is that stupid?
The beauty of your environment, the orderliness, and your
first
and
of
your
all,
inner state.
orderliness is usually a sign of somebody who's had a lot of trauma. They have to have a clean and controlled environment because
I'm all fucked up.
because it's because it energetically it soothes our nervous system, because we need our nervous system really, because when there's scattered stuff around, our energy is like, that's not going to work for me. Like I have to have a clear counter inside my kitchen, because my kids just will pile it up, and I'm like, you guys know that mom needs a clear counter. It doesn't mean anything to anybody but me, because it makes me feel better. So I feel like what people who get the payoff from it is almost like an initiation to start the day with order. So I feel like if I'm in a disorder, because you wake up every day with your bullshit from the day before, and the life before. Every day you wake up with a reminder of like, oh, I still got that shit. And so every day you have to undo it, rewire it to be a new person every day, right? If you haven't done the work, it comes up. So if you start your bed with some order, then maybe you have you've set your nervous system into a state of peace right away. So maybe there's a gratification that comes from it. Like, hey, I've made my bed. I feel good from the jump. So it all depends on what the payoff is for the person who's made their bed. Is it an accomplishment? I think it's an emotional connection though to the bed. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So you're fucked up, Eric. That's just.
I know I am.
I'm just playing.
No, I mean I am too.
No,
I'm but
just
here's the
playing with
thing: it's the order, but it's control. We want control of the things.
No, it's an interesting.
When you go through trauma, you don't have control over your life, and so when you are working through it, you're going to seek control from certain places. And if that's a place that I can control and it makes me feel better, then why wouldn't I do it? Like I like my white Gucci shoes white. I don't like them dirty, so I will clean them before I go. I see people who give 0 Fs and their shoes are like, wow, you really don't care. And I'm like, that's awesome to live like that. I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? My car is completely clean. I wash it like every other day. I love it. It makes me feel good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a very, there's so many angles to it. One angle we didn't even get into when we beat it up on our podcast, but there's also a lot of deep research on just temperament, like personality temperament. Some people rank incredibly high in orderliness. It's not necessarily like a moral failing.
Well, but it is interesting how the masses will migrate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. You can't live. Well,
everyone's this way, and then they're all. Oh, I agree with that.
This would be.
Here's
Here's a question
standing tall. I like the made bed.
Here's a question for Shamina. So Shamina,
one thing though, making your bed doesn't make you successful.
No, but
that was Alex Hormozy's point.
Yeah, that was the whole point. But the connection to that admiral's point, like the spidey senses of his entire message, I totally resonate with that 100%. Because success happens long before it shows up in the bank account. 100%. It shows up in the small details when no one's looking. My ability to do things knowing that no one's watching that really don't matter were actually the things that mattered most in the temperament that got me to stay in the fight longer than the next guy who's lazy 100%. As fuck.
That's so
100%.
How
like my bank account was negative when I was starting all over again, and I had to think I was the wealthiest bitch around so I could fill that bank account up. So I acted like her, I behaved like her. What would a wealthy woman do? Every day I woke up, I'm like, a wealthy woman would make her bed. A wealthy 100%. Woman would dress like this. A wealthy woman would do this. That's what I did. I acted like my future self right now and then I became her. So I do agree with that.
You know what my wife's dream was? My wife's dream was to have a matching bed set when she was little because she never had pillows that matched the blanket or the bed her whole life. She grew up on an Indian reservation. She's half white, half Indian, and she never lived with her dad. And so she grew up around her native part of the family, and they just couldn't afford anything, like literally anything. Everything was hand-me-downs, old beds that they, and her dream was to have a matching bedroom set. But everything in Jeanette's life aligns with that little girl who's just always saw what she perceived as success And it was things that were orderly. It was things that were matching. They were actually meant to go together. Like the pillows are supposed to match the bed. That always pulled at my heartstrings. Like when I heard that story, and Jeanette's like one of the most classy humans on earth. My wife is insanely amazing, but I love that story. And it's interesting to say, what is the thread of success from that childhood to here? Because no one gives a shit about inherited people. Like we're not talking about generational wealth. I don't care. I love the rags to riches story. I stay in that lane all day. And I think most of the good ones the most inspiring ones they just are. Like those people that achieved greatness. Like what was the thread that kept them in the fight? Like what's the Michael Jordan story? Like you start getting into the weeds a little bit on these topics. And at some point the bed was very important. Like, and the bed could be a metaphor for many other little things, tiny little things that seemingly don't matter. Do you know what I mean? But I think there's a much better connection that he just jumped past it and everyone moves that way. And I just want to stay back on that a little bit. I'm with the Admiral, you know? My dad used to flip a quarter on the bed. You know, he would rip
Did you go
the
to
bed
West
apart.
Point?
No, I didn't. This is my
I had
stepdad
friends that
when
went
I
to
was
West
7.
Point, and they would try to show me how they made their bed, and I'm like, I'm going to do the best I can, but it's not going to be a West Point. You know?
Yeah. So
Sorry,
Thanks
Matt,
for
I cut you off.
entertaining that. Now, you had a really good point though. I actually really like the way you disclosed that, like how you answer that. That's why sometimes it's fun to answer a question you're chewing on with other people that have brilliant minds, is because you can hear them articulate things in different ways. And that was a really great way I thought you answered that too. It does say a lot about you as well.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, my understanding of like how you framed like levels of consciousness, the higher your level, let's say in that frame, it's really the more generous or loving or giving or selfless you become. And could you speak to that in terms of not only is it a function of letting go of your own personal fears, anxieties, or belief systems around money, but there's also, it seems to me, a huge level of like earnest care for the well-being of others. Like what you're up to, Eric, today in our mastermind coaching group, we talked a little bit about sales, and some of the top sales people, they're amazing because people sense that they actually are caring for the highest good of their prospective client, and they detect that in their heart underneath the sales script, so to speak. Can you talk about that? Like you personally, here's the question, like Shamina, like what is most dear to you? Like what brings you joy in terms of serving others? Like, what are you after?
That I transform their lives. Like they get out of get out of their own way. Like to me, I feel like, well, the most dearest to me is my children, but then then becomes my clients. But I feel like a woman who has the potential to become limitless, and if I have the power to take away the limits from her, because these mostly that I have found successful people, they have such like limits imposed in themselves. They live an or life, and I want to teach them there's an and life. You get all of it. It's not like this or that. It's and this. And it's like all the things. So if she is able to start seeing the world in a different way of like what's possible and how much is available to her, because a lot of the time people are on a reward system. If I do this, I get that. Where I'm like, how big can you dream? Like, what is it that you desire to do in this world? I know you want to have big impact. I know that you want to put a book out there, a podcast, or you want to reach millions of people. But you also want to create a life for your family that's, where you have this freedom and you don't have to struggle and you get to enjoy all the moments of it. So for me, it's expanding her consciousness around the possibility of what's available in her life so that she can see things that she can't right now. I also like to help mirror things in them. It's one of the things of my gifts. I see people very clearly when they're coming. I'm very intuitive. And I read their energy. And if I can help her tap into the greatest version of herself so that she goes out there and lives the most abundant version of who she is, then anything is possible in her life. The wealth, the love, the success, whatever it is.
I love that word mirror. I align with that. Like there's this great quote by Meister Eckhart, an angel is a perfect mirror. Like the highest form of love is to reflect back to someone what they're capable of, or their beauty, or even their shortcomings, but you reflect it back with such love that I love that.
They trust me. I have a safe masculine place. Dating though, it's a whole nother story.
You're not as evolved in the dating realm.
Oh, let me just tell you.
We should
We
have
don't
a
have,
we should have a 10
we need another hour for that
we should do
part,
a 10
okay?
our listeners would love a 10-minute therapy session to help powerful Shamina be as powerful in dating as she is with money.
Like seriously, I always say men and money are very similar. Like men are not a shortage in my life, like coming around. It's just finding a conscious man who can handle me in the sense of his energy is big enough to,
Wow.
be present. So because I do mirror people, I mean, but I want a man who wants to grow with me and also is not afraid of the
Yeah.
challenge that's there. And so
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a
A
lot of
highly
men go
aligned
back.
man.
Yeah, highly
Yeah.
aligned man that's, that's like me, that wants to also achieve the things and, has a vision. And, it's one of those things that I have found though that when you become in a very divine feminine way, you're not going to put up with a lot of things. My standards are for what I want. I never used to be like this. My father was a narcissist and I grew up with a very poor money blueprint when it comes, man blueprint when it
Yeah.
comes to men. My what I accepted before was not very good,
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I know I check a lot of the boxes and I bring a lot to the table. I never did that. I knew that before. I didn't think I was worthy of love. I didn't think I was
Yeah.
worthy of things. And now I do. And so now when you start putting yourself on that, realm, I don't want to say it's difficult. So I don't want to put that information out to the universe. It's something where I'm staying open to who's going to come to me. That's also wants to go on that level. Like every man I've dated, he like 10X's his business because
it's a
it's one of those
precious
things because they get in
yeah.
the frequency of money and so I mean,
Yeah.
of course, dating millionaires and multimillionaires, they start making money, but it's like, I want someone who's going to challenge me and grow with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, of course, that'd be a natural, deep yearning. There, yeah, there's less people that high on the summit of the mountain. It doesn't mean it's not scarcity. It's just the truth.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and if you're a rare gem and you're looking for a rare gem
so
of your
it would
quality,
be
rare gems are hard to find.
And you went through your celibacy. I remember I'm married. My wife is my dearest friend, and I pinched myself that relationships are kind of mysterious, as you know, Shamina, coaching people. Like I had a young man, 30. I coached him for a year, and one of his goals had to do with relationships. And I was straight up out of the gates. I was like, brother, we will explore the whole domain of relationships and your family and everything, but I'm not promising any outcome, just because it's another soul. I mean, you'd have to be God Almighty, omniscient to like say, oh. So I empathize with your yearning and in due time, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've worked with quite a few women, and that is one of the common things that I keep finding is women's. You use the word worthiness. Am I worthy? And that's really profound, I think, because it's something I've seen a lot. Let me ask you, flip that question on you. What is one of the big blockages that's really common that you find for women, particularly women that come and work with you?
In money or
I do
relationships?
believe I'm worthy
Anything.
now. So it's
Yeah,
one of those
right.
things where their hearts are usually closed. So their hearts, the biggest block I see is that the capacity to receive love and being in that feminine to receive, it's very hard for them. So receive help, receive any type of like support from the masculine. It's a very hard thing because they've developed their own version of the masculine, which is like has helped them through their achievement. That's how their validation, it's driven them. And most of the women I work with are double degreed. So these aren't women who are just accepting what, the basics. They're like going up more and wanting more for themselves. So it's like feeling enough. And it's one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with. And, they just never feel enough. It's never enough. And so when you never feel enough, you don't tap into this place of like, give me more of this. It's always like, I'm always chasing something. So the more I can help them feel enough, you can compound that emotion to create more of it. And that would be your frequency of vibration. But if you're always never feeling enough, then you're always going to be, nothing will ever fill you.
Sure.
It'd be like a colander going in and
And
out.
the masculine takes great joy in supporting, contributing, serving, giving.
Yes.
And if a woman can't like reflect that, receive that, they're out.
Yeah, and that's actually leading to one of my questions that was in the back of my brain is I like your depiction of and the way you talk about masculine and feminine and even masculine within a female, which all this I'm all into. But, obviously, if you've been watching what's happening in society, it's an interesting question how masculinity in general is under assault in this country. And I've always been kind of baffled by that since they started going after it, because real masculinity is protective. It's protective of innocence. It's protective of people that do harm to innocent things, like the whole nine. Like there's a lot of beauty in masculinity and femininity. The whole thing's it's set up by a perfect God, right? And they're going after it hard. And it is cool to see a powerful woman who has a strong voice and who's obviously not afraid to be able to speak her truth, have an opinion about sort of the assault on masculinity. And, now we can't even answer what a woman is. Like, it's really bizarre to me. To me, it's heartbreaking for young developing mindsets where their little neural pathways are developing in real time at a young age. And now you're confusing them, and teachers are taking over this and saying things that are just so diametrically opposed to what countless parents are probably know in their heart to be true and would want to see. So if you could speak to that a little bit about what you see happening, it's just a topic that I think is worth having at the very least.
I love men. I feel like a man who's doing his work is the sexiest thing in the world. I mean, I just think to me, it's the most attractive thing when a man has in his emotions. I will say the thing that I'm most proud of, an experience in my life, is my 18-year-old son. He is one of the most divine masculine young men you will ever meet.
Amazing.
He is been dating his girlfriend for a year, Danny, and the way he treats her is just like, I get emotional when I think about it, because
chivalry's not dead.
it's not like, he's like, I don't understand why my friends are looking at other girls or why they're so mean to their girlfriend. He's like, I don't understand why they do this. He's like, if they like her, he's like, there's no other girl for me but her. This boy plays football. He plays rugby. He is very masculine in his physicalness. But he said to me, he goes, one day he looked at me, he goes, thank you for telling me it was okay to have emotions. And I was like,
agree.
That hit me, like, because it was like, he's not afraid to care for her. Like, he'll pay for everything. He takes care of her. He drove to her game. We drove her to her game last night. And he goes, and I said, hey, honey, you might have homework to do. He's like, I'll get it done, but this is her last game. I want to be there for her. And when he came home, he goes, I'm so glad I went because she scored. And my son, I've learned as a single mom, it's really hard to raise a very masculine, young man, because I invite him into conversations, even with chores. I'm like, do you mind doing this for me? Like, I had to start this at a very young age for him, so he felt safe, because he didn't have a dad growing up, and I didn't want him to be emasculated around me. So I had to do my work on how I could raise him so that he could feel confident in how he did things in life, so that he could trust himself and be in a state of. And I feel like that's what's missing right now, is like so many young men are being emasculated, or they're not taught to trust their emotions, or they're growing up to be mean to girls, like, because that's what these other girls who have not done their inner work too, because their parents are raising them that way. So they want guys who treat them like crap. And so that's like this thing that's going on. So I feel like that goes into the future too. You see a lot of women who go to emotionally unavailable men or avoidant men, if we're talking about attachment styles, and you see that happening. And so it keeps repeating. So the only way I feel like this is going to change is if awareness. And I feel like the more that we give the masculine room to lead in different ways, like, I want a man to come in and be like, let's go, babe, I got this. I'm busy doing that in my job every day and being me. I want someone to come in. And I think if more women did their own inner work, we would also lead the masculine to bring it out. Like, one of the things when women come work with me, when they start doing this work, their men come out of the woodwork.
Yes.
Like, all of a sudden their men are like, supporting them. Some of them get pregnant, and I say, hey, this is not, I always put a disclaimer, I'm not responsible for any quantum babies, but the sex life changes, everything changes, because now they're learning that they don't have to be such hard bitches. Like, they can just relax and let the masculine do what they're supposed to do. And I emasculated a lot of men in my life. I will tell you that, because I didn't know any better, because the trauma told me I had to protect myself because they were going to hurt me.
Yeah, you were assuming the masculine.
Yeah. I agree. Like, if you want a man to be the best version of himself around you, like within the control that you as a woman have just in the relationship itself, then allowing the feminine to exist, it makes me want to, like, the animal instinct in me to be a real lover and a protector and a friend. It's there much more easily with effort than someone that's trying to go against the grain. And you know what I mean? And you're right. I see that all the time. I think you're dead on in relationships today in America, how they really confused so many things that actually make it very tricky, for a
Women are
man
too
to show up the
bossy.
way he should. Yeah.
Well, it's
Women are too
also
bossy with their men. They're telling their men to do too much. I always say, like, why are you telling your man so much? I go, invite him into things. Like, no
well,
It
man wants to
works.
a
You're
mother.
right.
And then,
I'm
then
here
they
to say
wonder
it
why they
works.
have why they're not having sex in their relationship. I'm like, because
Yeah.
he's not
Right.
going to want to have sex with his mom.
Yeah, nah,
I mean,
you're
how are you
rude.
attractive to him?
exactly.
Yeah,
There,
I agree.
the other
So
thing.
good,
Speaking of
Shamina.
women,
It's so true. It's
in
amazing.
the history of the Western world, like really, we're only 50 years into new frontiers. I think it's
Yeah, right.
demands more of men and women today. I just saw this reel. It kind of blew me away. Like women didn't get credit cards from banks until like 1976. Right?
Yeah, 72 or something. Right, yeah.
76 or something, right? I was
Yeah.
born in 74. I remember thinking, and then now I think men and women are having to negotiate. It's just like the bed thing. Whether a woman works or not, it's not the issue. Whether you make the, it's not, it's more it's broader than that.
Sure.
But it's unique challenges. Like for men and women, they have these historically for centuries, these traditional roles, which there's probably a downside to, like a shadow or a sleepness to. But nowadays, it's more nuanced to like co-negotiate those roles in a modern couple. What are your thoughts on that? Like
So I believe that. I mean, most men, they like that I'm successful, but they don't really care about it as much. Like, they're like, that's great.
yeah,
That's awesome.
they just want
know,
you.
like-
No,
they're,
yeah.
they're just like they just
Yeah,
want to
they
be around.
care. They're like, how?
They just like you.
Yes, they want the softness in me.
No, they just want
my
your
softness,
love,
they
your
want my
confidence.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, they want me to just be like, bring your energy to me. So I feel like,
Yes, it's so true.
when being a nurturer, like a woman, and especially a powerful woman, to be in that state with a man, there's nothing more that will turn him on. Like this is it.
So
Because
true.
if he
She's
will
right.
go do anything for you.
I'm here to
if you
validate it.
understand. And if you equate that, if you take that and you apply it to money, ladies, oh my gosh, it's like
Yeah.
cash just rolls in.
Yeah.
So, but when you because it's a masculine, I always know I'm supported by the masculine, no matter where I go.
Yeah,
what
be
I'm
more
doing.
feminine if you want to be wealthy. Yeah.
100%.
Seriously, that's the key.
You see
Yeah,
it all
like
the time,
you-
like women say they want
Here's
something,
Sham-
but they're going about it the wrong way. If you
Yeah.
want that
Wrong
effortlessly,
Be a woman.
be a woman.
Here's Shamina's program. She's like, girl, be a woman,
Just be
and
feminine.
you
it's
will
not-
flourish.
Yeah.
No, you
And
could
it's not-
still.
It's not
have
bubble
a
baths
cre-
and doing that kind of stuff. Because I
No,
can't.
not-
No.
not-
Sure, I get. No, we get it.
Not femininity.
You've
per se.
articulated
It's
it
like
really well.
the womb of man, a woman. You are that which you're fecund. You're fertile. You receive.
So your question earlier, you said though you were asking me something. I was going to say something.
Oh, just the co-negotiating roles of.
Oh, right.
men
So
and women.
I feel like when I was married, my money was fund money. Believe it or not, even as a lawyer and practicing, my ex-husband's money was provider money. Always, he was
Sure.
an amazing provider. He was a masculine man. He took care of things. That was just his role. So whatever money came into the house, we lived on one income. It was like, oh, let's go do fun things with it.
Sure.
And when we structured things that way, it made a difference in the house. And so we also took different roles. And this is before I even knew any of this world. It's just
Yeah.
one of the things that developed in that dynamics of it. So I feel like there's certain roles that mommy plays, and there's certain roles that a father plays, in a relationship, and in that dynamics. But I feel like when everybody tries to wear all the hats, which most high achieving women who are control freaks want to do everything and then just delegate to their husbands. When you do that, you're taking away his magic. And men have magic in them, and we want that magic to come out, because that's that's the thing of why you were attracted to him in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you can sit down, like my friend Elena Cardone, like she'll tell you, like she sat there and she's like, listen, I do this, Grant does this.
Yeah,
we
and she's
do
a
this.
baller too, right?
She's a baller. She's amazing too, by the way. But
She's still got the feminine. Yeah.
she does. She's
Say
got
more.
this essence about her. And she's like, I'm in charge of the household, and he's in charge of the business that way.
Yeah.
And, she has her own business, but she makes her own money aside from him, let's say. My girlfriend, Elizabeth, she runs her own business and she has her things. But, I can't stand when women say, I retired my husband. I'm like, if that's not the most emasculating thing you can say to a man, I have
it's
no
terrible.
idea.
It's not attractive.
My wife,
No.
we have
hear
4
that.
boys. We have 4, and they're little. We had kids late in life, but they're 10 and under. And my wife, she's she's super psychologically, spiritually sophisticated, but she's reading. She'll do little things like my 7-year-old. She'll be like, "Hey, sweetie, this is kind of heavy. Can you help mom?" And you wouldn't believe his 7-year-old. He stands up,
Yeah, that's
and
cute.
like the
super cute.
joy. The joy of him on his face as he helps his mama and carries this heavy thing to the porch.
She needs a strong young man.
Oh, it's so sweet. Like the subtle, their nature, like
Yeah, men are so much simpler than
Way.
today modern woman makes us out to be. We're not that
We're very
complicated.
simple.
You want us to be a winner in the household? Like, don't treat me like a slave.
Way
Like,
easier.
I don't want to do. You know what I mean? If you want me to do dishes, don't tell me to do them. Like, put your hand on my shoulder and ask how my day was. Like, that'll make me so want to go do something for you. But if you bark at me when I've just slayed dragons all day, like, I'm good. Like, I don't need all this shit.
No man wants that. Like,
Oh my God.
they want.
They're babies. We just coddle us like for 2 seconds. It doesn't take long. Like,
Yeah,
just coddle me.
I feel like the woman is the vision holder. Like, she's the one that's going to hold the vision for you. Like, so you can go do great.
Yeah,
big
the woman.
things.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he's looking for that woman who's going to be like he has a vision, but she's going to be like, go bigger,
There's
go
this-
bigger. I got you, babe. Go
There's
bigger.
this.
You know how powerful that is for a man to hear?
Oh, that's
support.
I bring this up.
That's
Eric,
support.
Eric has heard this story before, but there's this classic children's book called Saint George and the Dragon, and early in the book, it shows this knight, and it has this line. It's a distillation of this classic fable that for centuries people have revered. So there's this knight going out to do battle, but it says, and he's with a woman. Una is her name. She's the one. And it's like he goes out in a battle, but he literally doesn't know who he is until she comes. Then he goes off too far on his own and he loses his way. Like she's the real guide in his life. Like
It's so true.
The feminine is actually like the source and power of the man.
I totally agree.
It's like, but it's very yin. Another time he's like fighting a dragon and he's false on the battlefield. And then there's an archetype or scene of she's praying over him. And so it's like, I don't know, like there's a natural propensity in the masculine and feminine. And rather than try to distort it, like
they're
let go
going
of
against it.
resisting it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If
That's
women,
really good.
if women can start first, because sometimes men need a little bit.
Yeah, we don't know who the hell we are.
Right. If we can start first and we do our duty and our job, I'm telling you, ladies, your business will change, but also the relationships with the men in your life will change. It won't just be one area.
She's right.
And it's like it's a win for both. And so, I mean, I can't tell you. I meet strangers. I mean, flying first class, men that want to just do things. Like, I mean,
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, the stories that I could tell you, we don't even have time. But I mean,
I bet.
like, it's just incredible what guy. I mean, one time I was flying to Vegas and
It's
this guy I met, and he literally hooked me up with a hotel room, and I was like, "This is
Yeah.
so awesome for my
Yeah,
kids
it's
to go
the-
on a trip." And it was like $10,000, and my son goes,
Yeah.
"Did you have to do anything for that?" I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
"Nope."
it's just just
I
being a
mean,
woman.
they just
It's
wanna
like the
give to me.
It's the philosophical problem
being a
of
woman.
being a beautiful, powerful woman in the world. It just, man, I wish I was a woman so I could take your course.
Yeah. Seriously.
Hey, I actually had 3 guys join my program today, so I never had
interesting.
men in
Good
my
for
program
you.
before.
This is good for the
So,
audience to
but-
know. So, dudes, if
Yeah.
anything, there's a lot of powerful women in the course, but yeah, man.
Let me just tell you something though. There's something that I really feel like, you know, if you take anything away from this conversation, feel into these guys' energy, like, because they are divine masculine men. And when you see men are in this state, like, I get to be in my even though I'm speaking about my business, I'm still in my feminine in the state right now.
Totally.
And there's
Totally.
no other way. And this is like the most attractive thing. It doesn't matter how you look, what your booty looks like, what your body. It's like this energy is what they're going to come for.
It's the quality of the being.
Yes.
Yeah, and
You're right.
I feel that about
There-
you. I do.
And when I'll say this, it's complimentary, however you framed what we are, like being whatever we are. I'll tell you
Sexy
this,
beasts.
I like integrated, the total man or whatever. But I'll tell you this, I'm not attracted whatsoever to a physical 10 of a woman. I mean, I see the beauty of it, but real beauty is the consciousness. I would always, since I was like pretty young, I'd say, you know what a beautiful woman is? A healthy woman who owns her beauty. As long as she's like metabolically healthy, I'll take.
Yeah, right, sure.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like the figure, all those things are so secondary.
That's so beautiful. I love
it's
that.
not what makes a woman like really desirable.
It's not.
That's so surface stuff. It only lasts so long.
It's
Because
just-
you guys did your work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like men who haven't done their work still look for how does she look? They're still feeling a hole inside of them.
They're driven by their
They want-
animal, not their
Yeah, they're
spirit.
wanting
Yeah.
something to. That's like F boys, right? Like where they want, they still want women to fill up something that's empty inside of them. You know, they want more money or they want more, women to fawn over them. Like that's a trauma response when you have women doing that and that seeking attention in that way, and you play mind games with them. That's
so
not
true.
something that could work on a woman like me. But I mean, when a man is so secure in himself like you guys are, well, that is like that's what you want to attract into your world. You know what I mean?
In today's world, it's just rare. It's getting rarer and rarer and rarer to have these types of conversations with women like you and my friend Gia and Elena Cardone. And so guys like us, we want to champion women like you because we think that you might be the linchpins to saving society as the trajectory just seems to be getting poorer and poorer. Let's be honest. Our government is failing us at so many levels and they're going after kids. COVID was a bizarre few years that just hard to make sense of, but they moved the goalpost, and that's kind of the reason I stepped up to the plate. One of my whys is children. I just see what they're doing to kids. I'm like, fuck this. I think the butterfly effect of what I'm doing is worth it. Pouring in other people, and now I found my passion. There's so many unique alignments here, but at the end of the day, it's because I think that good guys should step up to the plate and get in the arena and then this
women,
fight.
yeah.
This is one of the pathways that we chose, and I'm really enjoying it because I get to really circulate amazing conversations around my community.
Yeah, about real integrity,
it's just
real love, like real service.
what it really looks like. Yeah, it's cool, man. And again, I don't think it's saturated. There's the imposter in me was like, oh man, like too many guys are doing this. No, I think more people need to do it. Now that I have a look under the hood, more people need to step up to the plate, and the more they are going after their dreams and they're really bettering themselves and healing themselves, the better it is for society, the better it is for the things we really care about, our children. So again, like I would love to have her on again. This was a great
Yeah, no,
This
I
was
could
so-
see it. I
podcast.
could see
Yeah.
it. So speaking of that, Eric, in terms of doing your part, Shamina, if people want to learn more about you and all that you're doing, your masterminds, your new book, so tell us about what your book title is and where people can discover more about you.
Okay, so thank you. Like this was amazing. I'm gonna leave here on such a high. I'm gonna go lift at the gym now, and I'm gonna be thinking about this. It's
You're
just
amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you for having me on. This was such a. It's like
welcome.
energetically, I feel so different. So there's a definitely shift in consciousness here.
That's cool.
Love it. And so I would love you to come find me on Instagram, Shamina Taylor. You can go to my website, shaminataylor.com. For those women who want to join my group, the Quantum Woman group on Facebook, we're on YouTube. We're starting on there, and then here's my podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody loves my podcast.
Yeah, so
We're
what is
ranked
it?
Almost 20. We're almost in the top 20 of entrepreneurs, and I think we're at 65.
Sick.
On business. So come listen because it's really good.
Amazing.
The Quantum Woman.
Yeah,
And
Quantum
then this is my
Woman.
book, Unlocking the Quantum Woman. It just came out. It's on Amazon. We have we just a couple days out, and we already have 70 something 5-star reviews.
That's
so
a great
I know
title.
It's a good book.
It is a
Unlocking
good
the
title.
Quantum Woman.
The
Yeah,
4
it's cool.
keys to the life that you want, the dream, the life. I have 4 keys
Man,
in here.
you-
I literally give you practical things to do because I'm a person who likes results. So it's not just
Yeah,
information, it's
cool.
integration.
You're
You
amazing.
are just getting started.
Yeah,
Man,
whew.
it's clear.
She's a champion.
Yeah,
making it.
totally.
I love champion women.
Yeah,
You're
champions
incredible.
recognize their own.
Yeah, game recognizes game.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Shamina. So check her out, you guys. Amazing.
Yeah. Shamina Taylor, thank you so much.
Again for having me. Such a pleasure.
Very grateful for you.
I'm a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission.